So I have 18 minutes to speak with you. And in America, that's about the average time that you would have to wait past your appointment time before you can hear the doctor will see you now. As the patient sits in the aptly called waiting room, she's worried, she's anxious, she's looking for answers. She knows what the role of the doctor is, but what role does she play in the doctor-patient relationship? And that's what I want to talk to you about. The role you play in the relationship you have and will have with that person who keeps you waiting, your doctor. But what authority do I have, if any, to talk to you about the doctor-patient relationship? Well, I'm a self-proclaimed professional patient. So what, you may ask, is a professional patient? Well, before I can tell you what it is, I have to tell you what I used to think it was. I used to define it as someone who had to go see the doctor a lot, maybe because of a chronic or a terminal illness, basically someone who spent a disproportionate amount of time with medical professionals. But then I came to learn that a professional patient is much more than that. My career as a professional patient began early. I was raised by a wonderful grandmother who had a lot of medical problems, but she was also a full-fledged hypochondriac. And as the primary English-speaking person in my family, I was the one that took her to the doctor. So I was both a translator and a witness to all of these doctor-patient interactions. But I also had my own set of medical problems. I've had chronic asthma since I was an infant, with all the complications that come with that. And when I was 15, they found a tumor in my pituitary gland. I had to go home and tell my family this awful news. And I also had to negotiate with the doctors whether or not to have the brain tumor removed. At the age of 15, imagine, I had to make life-altering decisions that would compromise my ability to have children. So I never had the tumor removed, and I went off to college. First generation in my family to attend college. I graduated from Cornell University with honors. I attended Georgetown University Law Center under a prestigious fellowship. I was on law review. I graduated with one of the top student awards. I passed the New York bar on the first time I took it, and I became a public defender. So I'm just going to go ahead and admit it. It was all that in a bag of chips. But the whole time I was doing these things, I was also really sick. 2 years into my legal practice, I was diagnosed with lupus. Lupus is an immune deficiency disease. Basically, in layman's terms, what it is that my immune system just all of a sudden decided to attack my own body. And it's systemic. So what systemic means is it literally attacks my whole body. I would eventually come to be diagnosed with 5 autoimmune disorders, lucky me. And as this attorney speaks to you right now, the professional patient in me is undergoing oral chemotherapy. And just this week, I had to have procedures to both my esophagus and my vocal cords because of complications from the autoimmune disorders. One of my favorite doctors, just sent me a note on Facebook, and she said, "I'm not worried about you, because if anybody knows how to solve problems, it's you." So I want to go back to when I was first diagnosed with lupus, and I was working as a public defender. On a hot day in August of 2000, while I was running from one courtroom to the other, I made the brilliant decision to have the last piece of Jamaican jerk chicken from my favorite food cart. I love that food. It was my favorite. But as you can probably guess, I got food poisoning. And it got so bad that I had to be admitted for hydration. Pretty standard, right? Well, it ended up being anything but. The plan was for the doctors to give me something called hypertonic saline. Basically, that just means it has 3 times the amount of sodium that a normal bag of IV. But it can also be dangerous, so they said, "We'll draw your blood every 4 hours." I said, "Fine." When I was admitted, the hospital personnel knew of my complicated medical history. They even knew that I was an attorney. But 2 entire days passed without a doctor or nurse coming to draw my blood. I hit the clicker button. I asked anybody who came in. I even yelled out into the hallway, "Hey, is someone going to draw my blood?" But I was told that it was the summer, they were understaffed, and they would get to draw my blood when they could, and I believed them. On the second night that I was at the hospital, I was sitting by the window by myself, and I realized that my body was violently shaking. I could taste the blood in my mouth as I was biting the insides of my cheeks. I couldn't form a coherent thought. I couldn't even call for help. I was seizing, and I was dying. I knew I was, and all I could manage to do was pray for more time. I wasn't ready to die. I waited on the doctors, and I waited on the nurses, but they never came. I slipped into a coma. When I awoke days later, I was told that I was lucky to be alive and that I had permanent brain damage. Some of the side effects from the brain injury included a seizure disorder, cognitive and memory problems, speech impediments. I had severe balance problems. I mean, you get the picture. I was a mess. And it took 6 years of inpatient and outpatient rehabilitation to get to where I am now. And I don't want to be conceited or anything, but I think I look pretty good considering everything I've been through. So people say that it's a miracle that I'm alive. But to me, the greater miracle is that I can use my story for all its horrors, that my story for all its horrors is a tale of resilience and overcoming obstacles. And more importantly, that I want to use my hard-gained knowledge to empower current and future patients. After the injury, my body was broken and my soul was crushed. The last people I wanted to see, especially while naked under a flimsy medical gown, were the very people who had nearly put me in the grave. But what choice did I have? So I had to get over my fear. And then a couple of months into my rehabilitation, I started thinking, what could I have done to have facilitated better communication between myself and the doctors? Would that have made a difference? And then that got me to wondering, what can patients do to enhance their communication with the doctors to have a better doctor-patient interaction? So my search for these answers led me to do online research. I read books. I talked to a lot of people. One of these conversations led me to the Master's in Narrative Medicine program at Columbia University. Now, narrative medicine is an emerging field that seeks to train clinicians to better hear, interpret, and be moved by patient stories of illness. Basically, it's a movement to improve healthcare. And soon after graduating from the program, I made a realization. In order to make the most out of the doctor-patient interaction, both parties have to show up as professionals. Now, I'm not insinuating that the doctor and the patient are equal in knowledge or skill. No. I think an egalitarian relationship at the medical level is not possible. But the best results come when both the doctor and the patient share concerns and expectations, and they work and think in sync. So all of this led me to redefine what professional patient is. It's not the frequency of the appointments or the nature of the patient's ailments, but rather the patient's state of mind when they come to their doctor's visits. And I found that there are 4 easy steps that patients can take that can lead them to have a more professional attitude, and this more professional attitude will enhance the doctor-patient interaction. So I call the 4 steps HEAL, H-E-A-L. Pretty catchy, right? So the H stands for honor your and your doctor's time by showing up prepared to the visits. E stands for being an expert in your body and knowing your medical history. A stands for assembling your own healthcare support team. And L stands for listening to your doctor and understanding what they're said to you. Am I caught up? So let's go to the first one. Honor your and your doctor's time. So did you know that a physician spends an average of 13 to 16 minutes per patient during a doctor's visit? That leaves the patient a very short amount of time in which to share their concerns. And from the day that you make the appointment to the moment you hear the doctor will see you now, weeks, if not months, can pass. So the patient needs to make the most out of that time. Before I give you my how to get prepared, I want to talk to all these wonderful young people in the audience. I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, oh, this is a nice talk, but it doesn't pertain to me. You think you may never get sick, right? Well, I'm here to give you some bad news. You will have to go see a doctor at some point. And if not for yourself, to take a loved one or a family member. So you also have to pay attention to the steps. So an easy way way to get prepared is to do online research. Sorry. So online research will help you become familiar with medical terminology, and it'll help you be able to have a better sense of your symptoms and a better conversation with your doctor. But I do have to do a caveat and say beware. Take what you read on these medical websites with a grain of salt. My husband, who never gets sick, recently had some symptoms that I was like, I have to get on the computer and find out what this is. And after looking at these medical websites, I was this close to diagnosing him with cancer. Well, I'm happy to report that he had a cold with some swollen lymph nodes, but I say that just to say that, this is just to give you some information. You obviously have to discuss what you find with your doctor. Another way that I prepare is by going to the MyChart online program. So most hospitals and medical centers have this MyChart online program. And this is what it looks like just in one place, and it'll look different based on what hospital you go to. But the point is that this has your entire medical record. All you have to do is ask for the access code to get the information. What you want to do is check your profile and get your lab results, your latest MRI reports or X-ray reports, and use all of this information to front load your questions for the doctor. So when you come in, you know actually what you want to discuss with your doctor. And the last way that I prepare is by creating a document that I call a medical resume. So I want there to be no doubt. I like to impress my doctor. I like to come prepared. On the medical resume, I include all my biographical information, and I include my diagnoses, dates diagnosed, current and old medications, and just other relevant medical history. This information is really hard to remember on the spot, and so it's good to have it, especially at your doctor's office when they're asking you, well, what's the medicine you take? So it's really good to have this information available. And just a side note, I found that it impresses the doctors, and that can't be a bad thing, right? So the next step is being an expert in your body. So you know more about your body than you think you do. You know what fabric you wear that makes you itch. You know what aches and pains you get when it rains or it snows. And you know what food you love to eat, but it always upsets your stomach, right? So another way to become a greater expert in your body is just to pay close attention to how your body reacts to the environment, to what you eat, to what you do. Now, this doesn't have to be a major undertaking. No need to jot everything down, but do pay close attention. Let's say you have a cold. You can ask yourself, how long have I been coughing? Am I short of breath? Do I have any phlegm? What color is it? These are all questions that your doctor is going to want to know. So you want to have that information ready. One of the obstacles for patients to talk freely to doctors is something that we call the white coat syndrome. And that's the fact that patients see doctors as authority figures with little time to spare. And so they're reluctant, if not out and out scared, to interrupt the doctor, ask a question, or speak up. But if we don't get over this white coat syndrome, then the doctor may miss out on pertinent information they need to diagnose us. Recent studies have shown that when a patient starts telling the doctor what brought them to see them, the doctor's going to interrupt between 12 and 18 seconds. More remarkably, the same studies show that if the patient was left to speak without interruption, they would stop speaking within just 48 seconds or less. That means is that all it takes is 30 seconds for the patient to be able to fully share what brought them there, and for the doctor to get this pertinent information. And that's why I argue that patients have to get over this white coat fear, and they need to embrace their role in the doctor-patient partnership, because that's what it should be, a partnership. Both parties should be aligned. So assembling your own healthcare team. If you think about it, most clinicians have a team of professionals that they collaborate with to make a diagnosis or treatment. It could include billing and coding, nursing support, colleagues. But what about you? Where's your team? Should you be making your own healthcare decisions on your own? Are you even able to? Well, I contend that no, you should have your own healthcare support team. So ideally, you can bring a friend or a family member when you go see a doctor, and they could ask questions, take notes, and be there to support you. But if this is not possible, as is often the case, then you should confer with your team, consisting of friends, family members, and you can make a list of your symptoms and questions you want to discuss with your doctor. Basically, the point is that you want to have a group of peers that you trust that can help you make healthcare decisions. So the last of my steps is listen to your doctor and understand what they're saying. So I just want to say that this is my husband's favorite step, because he says that many of us are really guilty of not doing this, right? So it's not enough to nod your head yes or yes ma'am the doctor. You must demonstrate that you understand what the doctor is saying to you. So what does this look like? Well, I, for one, repeat back to the doctor what I've heard her say, including tests, medicines, etc. Basically, I summarize the encounter in front of the doctor. And this is important because a recent study showed that more than 50% of doctors forget to tell patients what the dosage of a new medicine is or for how long they have to take the medicine. So the patient has to speak up and ask for clarification. In this moment of summarization is a good place for you to interject any questions or concerns you may have, or you may have just been too shy to ask earlier. The point is to have good etiquette. I know it sounds a little mismanners, but trust me, it works. For the doctor-patient relationship to work, you need to have clear communication and attentive listening. So I argue that you should always make sure you hear what the doctor's saying. In other words, don't hear what you want to hear, and don't leave the doctor's office unless you ensure you've understood everything that was discussed. So those are my 4 steps. And if you follow them, it does not mean that your doctor is going to be your new BFF, as my 9-year-old daughter would say. That's not the goal, right? But what it does mean is that you will be able to bring a more professional attitude to your doctor's visits, and hopefully you'll be able to find a partner, a reliable partner in your healthcare. So being a professional patient doesn't mean that you're consumed with your health or that you're constantly at doctor's office. No, quite the opposite. It means that you're really good at managing your health and that you make the most out of every doctor's visit. And with good management, hopefully, you'll have less doctor's visits. So I feel blessed to be alive. I'm lucky to be an attorney who gets to teach narrative medicine at Columbia University and CUNY School of Medicine. And I love my students. They inspire me every day. I'm committed to standing up for myself as a patient. I'm committed to speaking up, to asking questions. I'm committed to being an active agent in the doctor-patient partnership, especially now with the impending changes in healthcare. I hope that my story helps to empower other patients to embrace their role as a professional patient. And I see that my 18 minutes are up, and the doctor will see you now.